I don't know where it ends. I hope it ends soon.
Stay out of it. I mean, if they would just leave it alone and let the free market do its job.
I've had enough. Yeah, I've had enough of this horse shit.
You know, I'm seeing all these videos right now where all these farmers are crying about not getting no help right now. You know what?
Well, my friends, our farmers are in full-blown crisis, and it's not because of Mother Nature. It's because of Donald Trump's.
Yonder 600,000 metric tons of U.S. soybeans are sitting idle in storage undelivered. Cold warehouses across the Midwest are filled with pork that no one's buying. Grain prices are falling below break-even for farmers who've just planted next season's crop. And in Nebraska, one farmer told reporters he's selling his tractor not to upgrade but to keep feeding his family.
We just want to work, sell our crop, and have a decent life like everybody else. But if they would just leave it alone.
Not because of floods, not because of droughts, but because the biggest customer for U.S. agriculture, China, is no longer buying. In early 2025, the Trump administration relaunched its trade war with China, this time with a sharper edge. Tariffs were expanded aggressively, not just on consumer goods or select industrial components, but across entire categories of critical inputs, including semiconductors, rare earth minerals, and electronics. Rates climbed as high as 145%, with the White House framing it as an economic power move designed to reset America's global advantage and curb China's technological ascent. But what followed wasn't a classic tit-for-tat. There were no loud declarations from Beijing, no mirror image tariffs, no fire and fury rhetoric. Instead, China responded in a way that was deliberate, surgical, and quiet by cutting demand.
We never worry about it.
Why not?
Yeah, we only focus on ourselves, how we can do much better.
State-run importers quietly canceled or paused purchasing contracts, especially in one of the most sensitive sectors. Agriculture, U.S. soybeans, pork, beef, and wheat began disappearing from China's customs records. Ports that used to receive hundreds of thousands of tons of U.S. grain suddenly shifted to imports from Latin America and Eastern Europe. According to Bloomberg reporting in May 2025, Beijing issued internal guidance to major procurement agencies to not renew long-term U.S. agricultural deals. Instead, the directive encouraged building more resilient supply chains through Brazil, Argentina, and even Russia, nations viewed as more dependable in this new geopolitical context. This wasn't about pride or retaliation. This was economic judo using the weight of the American strategy against itself. By depriving U.S. farmers of their largest buyer and rerouting purchases elsewhere, China was showing the world how it would navigate conflict without a shot fired by withdrawing demand, not declaring war. For years, the U.S. agricultural sector prided itself on being the breadbasket of the world, and for decades, China was its most valuable customer. But now that foundational trade relationship is unraveling and fast, Beijing isn't just reducing purchases, it's replacing the U.S. entirely. In some sectors, Brazilian soybeans now dominate in regions where U.S. shipments once held over 70% of market share. Argentine beef has taken over supermarket shelves in Shanghai. Russian grain, previously a political afterthought, is being transported via newly developed infrastructure corridors into northern Chinese provinces. What's particularly alarming for U.S. producers is the length and depth of these contracts. According to recent reports from Reuters, many of these deals extend through 2030 and beyond, locking in pricing, logistics, and delivery schedules with foreign suppliers. In other words, these aren't temporary substitutions, they're structural shifts, ones that the U.S. can't undo with a handshake or a policy reversal. This means that even if tomorrow the White House drops all tariffs, and even if Beijing sends a diplomat to Washington with an olive branch, the market might still be gone. The ships won't come back. The contracts are already signed elsewhere, and that's the deeper wound. This isn't just about lost income, it's about lost relevance. The U.S. isn't just being shut out of deals, it's being repositioned from essential to optional. Travel through the rural Midwest, through counties in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska, and the frustration is palpable. Not loud, not angry, but weary. Like a slow-building storm that's been on the horizon for years and finally touched down. Farming communities here aren't strangers to adversity. They've faced droughts, floods, volatile markets, and even pandemics. But what makes this different? What makes it personal is the sense of betrayal. Organizations like the National Farmers Union and the American Soybean Association have issued urgent statements. They're not asking for another round of bailouts. They're asking for something far more fundamental, a return of customers. As one Iowa farmer told CNN, "We've weathered every kind of storm nature can throw at us, but losing trust in trade. That's something no insurance policy covers." Many of these farmers were early backers of the America First trade agenda. They believed in renegotiating better deals. They believed in short-term pain for long-term gain. But now, 5 years into that gamble, they're starting to wonder, was the pain actually the plan all along? This isn't just an economic dilemma, it's a crisis of confidence. A growing number of producers are choosing not to replant next season. Some are liquidating assets, others are seeking off-farm jobs, breaking a generational chain of land stewardship that once defined rural American identity. And when rural America starts questioning its place in the nation's economic priorities, that's not a policy problem, that's a national reckoning. While the US and China remain locked in this quiet but escalating economic standoff, the effects are radiating far beyond their borders. In import-dependent nations like Egypt, the Philippines, Kenya, and Nigeria, the consequences are showing up in markets and supermarkets. The cost of staple goods like wheat, corn, and soy-based animal feed has climbed between 10 to 15% since April, according to food security data aggregated by FAO and regional monitoring bodies. Governments are reacting in panic mode. Several are now instituting export bans to protect domestic supplies. Others are rushing to renegotiate grain deals with secondary suppliers like India or Argentina, often at higher premiums. Meanwhile, aid organizations are warning of a looming supply squeeze not from drought or climate change, but from geopolitics. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, issued a public bulletin last month stating that prolonged disruption in U.S. areas. China agricultural trade risks destabilizing food systems in vulnerable economies, especially where buffer stocks are low and currency volatility is high. But simply, this trade war isn't just costing two countries money. It's threatening to upend global food stability at a time when war, inflation, and climate shocks are already straining supply chains worldwide. And the worst part, it's all avoidable. For every ton of soy that doesn't ship, for every acre that doesn't get planted, there's a deeper loss taking root: the erosion of trust. Farmers once trusted that markets would reward their labor, that their government would shield them in times of crisis, that global demand for American food was stable, inevitable even, that trust has held up through decades of global volatility. But now it's being tested, and in some cases it's breaking. No one's putting it in so many words, but the mood is clear. They feel expendable, like political pawns, like background noise in a trade strategy they never signed up for. And here's what makes that dangerous: when you lose people's trust, you lose their participation. Farmers stop reinvesting. Young people don't return to the family farm. Equipment sits idle. Communities shrink. This isn't just a supply chain issue anymore. It's a slow disintegration of the social contract between America's heartland and the leadership that claims to defend it. And when that trust erodes, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. So here's the real question: are we protecting America, or just punishing parts of it to make a point? Trade policy should be a tool to build prosperity, not a weapon that leaves our own communities bleeding quietly in the background. What do you think? Is this the cost of leadership, or a failure in how we define strength? Let me know in the comments. If you found this breakdown informative, hit the like button. It really helps. And if you want more deep dive, fact-driven analysis like this, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the headlines might move fast. But understanding what they leave out, that's where the real story begins.